They fell in love, without ever meeting. Every night their voices connected them, their hearts intertwined. But one morning her voice disappeared forever. What happened to her? And how far would he go to find the love that lived only in whispers? Stay with me, because this story will take you through hope, heartbreak, and a love that refuses to fade. Before we dive into the incredible story, do not forget to like, subscribe and hit the bell button so you never miss our powerful, life-changing content. Thank you for listening to this heartfelt story. If it moved you, share it, comments below, and let someone know you are never alone. I remember the first voice note. Her laughter wove into my quiet morning. I did not see her face, but I knew her soul. Days turned into weeks. We spoke in fragments of music, poetry, small confessions. The world outside became blurred. Her voice was the only clarity I had. One rainy evening I held my phone, listening to the warmth of her words. The way her tone trembled just slightly. I imagined her hair wet, clinging to her face. I imagined her shivering and smiling. And I wanted to be there, to shield her from the chill. I never questioned the absence of sight. Sight was fragile. Her voice was eternal. Then came the morning she did not speak. No message, no note, just silence pressing against my chest. I ran through the city streets, smelling rain on asphalt, hearing the distant echo of footsteps that were not hers. I waited. Hours became days. Every vibration of my phone was hope. Every shadow on the wall, expectation. When the silence finally spoke, it tore through me with the force of a storm. I felt the weight of her absence in my bones, a hollow I could not fill with memory alone. And yet, even as the world fractured, I remembered the kindness in her voice, her understanding of pain, the way she carried the burdens of others lightly, as if to remind me that even in despair, someone's heart can meet yours, softly, unconditionally, and the world can still be full of tenderness. I wandered through the empty park, the benches slick with rain, the smell of wet earth heavy in the air. Every tree seemed to whisper her name. I reached for my phone, but even its cold screen offered no reply. Her last words lingered in my mind, soft, gentle like a brush of silk. "I understand," she had said, "even when it hurts, even when it is dark." I closed my eyes, imagining her there, her presence wrapping around me, like the warmth I had only felt through sound. A stranger passed, holding an umbrella, their shadow stretching across the puddles. For a heartbeat I thought it was her. The ache in my chest tightened, like the first time I realized love could hurt. More than anything else, I remembered the nights we stayed awake, telling stories that spilled like fireflies into the quiet dark, her voice painting hope in the corners of my heart. I remembered the longing, the way it built, the way it made every moment electric, every silence unbearable. I reached the bridge where I first imagined her hands, resting against mine. The wind tugged at my coat, carrying the scent of rain and possibility. Somewhere below, water rippled against stone, a rhythm I felt in my chest, a heartbeat that might still carry her. I whispered her name, a fragile sound, hoping it would cross the miles, hoping it would reach her, hoping her voice would answer, before the world grew too silent for either of us. The air felt heavier now, each breath thick with the memory of her laughter. I traced my fingers along the railing, cold iron biting into my skin, and imagined hers resting beside mine. The city was quiet, but not peaceful. Every distant horn, every dripping gutter, felt like a heartbeat out of sync, a reminder that something had shifted. I remembered the first time we shared secrets, her voice trembling as she admitted fear. And I had promised her, even without seeing her, that I would hold it, carry it, protect it. That promise now felt like a weight, heavier than stone. I walked faster, feet splashing through puddles, water soaking my shoes, cold biting through fabric. But I barely noticed. I only noticed the silence, that had replaced her voice. It was a silence that pressed against my ears, thick, unyielding, like the space between heartbeats. I stopped at the old cafe, where I had imagined her ordering tea. Hands wrapped around a warm cup, eyes soft but unreadable. The bell above the door jingled, and for a fleeting second, I thought someone had entered. A shadow passed by the window, and my heart leapt, but it was only a stranger, and I felt a hollow ache curling in my chest. I whispered to the empty street, words meant for her alone, my voice trembling against the cold, and I realized that love had taught me to live in the tension between hope and despair, to search for warmth in absence, to hold on to a voice that might never return, but had changed everything, forever altering the rhythm of my own fragile heart. I followed the streets, as if her voice might be hidden in the echoes of footsteps, in the rustle of leaves, in the hum of the neon signs. Every corner I turned held a memory I had painted with her laughter. The bakery where she had joked about croissants, the bookstore where she imagined stories for strangers, the tiny park bench where we had imagined meeting. Each place now whispered her absence. The wind carried a faint scent of jasmine, and my chest tightened. It was the scent I had imagined in her hair, the one I had traced in my mind 1,000 times. I closed my eyes, letting it fill me, letting the ache grow into something I could almost touch. I paused at the bridge where the river ran dark, reflecting the muted city lights. I leaned on the railing, cold biting into my palms, and I remembered her voice, soft and trembling, telling me about her dreams, about the fears she could not say aloud, about the nights she cried alone, and how she had wanted someone to carry the weight beside her. I whispered her name again, letting it float over the water, hoping it would travel, hoping it would reach her somewhere, hoping that somewhere, somehow, her voice might answer. The street behind me hummed faintly, a car passing, tires splashing through puddles. I felt my heart twist, a sudden pang of something raw and endless. I realized that love could hurt like this, more than hunger, more than exhaustion, more than the cold pressing against my coat, because it was not just longing, it was hope and memory, pain and tenderness, all tangled together, and I did not know how to untangle it. I took a step forward, then another, the river below reflecting my uncertain gaze, and I felt the weight of her absence press against me like a storm that refused to break, but demanded to be felt. I walked along the riverbank, each step squelching in the mud, the water whispering beneath the bridge, as if it knew the weight in my chest. The air smelled of rain and metal, and the city lights flickered on the wet pavement, reflections dancing like memories. Could almost touch. I remembered the first time she had asked me about my day, her voice soft, patient, so attentive it felt like sunlight on my skin. Even in the quietest moments, her presence had a way of filling the spaces I did not know were empty. A sudden wind caught my coat, pulling at me, and for a brief instant, I imagined her standing there, smiling, her hair tangled in the rain, her eyes catching the streetlight, like they had caught my heart. Stop, listening to the silence that had replaced her voice. Every sound became a question, every shadow a possibility. I touched the railing again, cold and solid, and I thought of all the mornings she had imagined with me, all the nights we had shared without seeing, all the laughter we had sent through wires and carried in our hearts. A sudden rustle behind me made me spin, heart hammering, hope rising sharp and reckless. It was only a cat, sleek and black, slipping through puddles, but for a moment, I felt the rush of possibility, the tremor of connection, the fragile thread of love, stretching across the void. I whispered her name, barely audible over the river, letting it fall like a feather, and I imagined her voice answering, soft and warm, reaching across time. reaching across the silence. And I realized that even in absence, even in fear, even in the endless ache, love could still find a way to hold us, to carry us, to remind us that hearts remember, and hope refuses to let go. The streets were empty now, the rain having stopped but leaving the world wet and glimmering. I breathed in the scent of damp stone and distant smoke, a smell that somehow reminded me of her. I walked slowly, listening for the faintest echo of her voice, for a vibration that might belong to her, for a note that might still carry her warmth. The lamplight reflected in the puddles like tiny lanterns, each one trembling with movement, and I imagined her reflection in them, smiling, searching for me too. My coat clung to my skin, cold seeping through layers, but I barely noticed. I noticed only the ache in my chest, the space where her laughter should have been, where her gentle teasing, her soft confessions, her unshakable kindness, had lived. I reached the corner of the old square, the place we had joked we would meet one day, imagining coffee in our hands, the chatter of the city around us. I paused, staring at the empty benches, the fountains still glinting with leftover rain. A single leaf drifted down, spinning slowly, landing near my feet, and I picked it up. It was wet, delicate, and in that moment, I could almost hear her voice, soft, warm, trembling. Do not give up. I am with you, even when I am not here. I pressed the leaf to my chest, feeling a strange connection, a thread between her and me, tenuous yet unbreakable, somewhere far away. I imagined her doing the same, holding a memory, holding hope, and I wondered how many nights we had spent, both searching for the same comfort, both longing for a touch we had never given, a gaze we had never shared, a voice that had become more real than the world itself. The city seemed to exhale around me, and I felt a tremor of anticipation, a shiver of fear and hope mingled, because love, the kind that finds you in darkness, the kind that lives in words and pauses, can sometimes reach the most impossible corners, if hearts are willing, if hope refuses to surrender. I kept walking, the streetlights casting long shadows across the cobblestones, each one twisting and stretching like a memory I could almost touch. The wind carried a faint scent of coffee, and my heart clenched, remembering how she had described mornings like this, how she imagined the warmth of a mug in her hands, and the way sunlight kissed the corners of a room. I paused near the old clock tower, its hands frozen at a time I could not remember. The stone beneath my fingers was cold, but it grounded me, anchored me to the city that had become our secret world. I whispered her name, letting it drift into the empty streets, letting it echo off the buildings, hoping it might find her, hoping she might hear it and answer, even just in thought. A distant sound reached me, footsteps soft but deliberate, and my heart stuttered. I spun toward it, breath catching, expecting, hoping. The figure emerged through the mist, and for a fleeting second, I thought it was her. Her hair wet, her eyes bright with recognition. But it was not her. A stranger, brief and anonymous, vanished into an alley before I could reach out. And yet my chest still ached, a strange mixture of disappointment and relief, because even in absence, her presence had taught me to feel so deeply. I sat on a nearby bench, hands wrapped around my knees, listening to the river murmuring below, imagining it carried messages from me to her. Every word, every sigh, every tremor of longing. I remembered how she had spoken of patience, how she believed in love that endured silence, love that refused to vanish even when the world forgot. I pressed my hand to my heart, feeling the steady, stubborn beat, and I knew somehow that we were tethered across miles, across moments of despair and hope, across every shadow the night had cast. A distant bell tolled, its sound reaching me like a pulse, and I shivered, sensing the fragile line between despair and revelation. knowing the next step, the next heartbeat, might change everything. And yet, I waited, listened, believed. I rose from the bench, legs stiff, heart drumming like distant thunder, and I followed the faint echo of the bell. Down a narrow alley lined with wet bricks, the smell of rain lingered in the air, mixed with dust and smoke from a nearby cafe. And I imagined her there, laughing softly to herself. Her voice carried on the wind, and I imagined it brushing my cheek. Footsteps approached behind me, slow, deliberate, and I turned sharply, breath caught, hoping, fearing. For a moment, the shadow on the cobblestones took shape, and my chest lifted, my heart a fragile bird beating wild. But it was only a delivery man, his bag swinging at his side, and the ache returned, deep and insistent, reminding me of how absence can carve itself into every fiber of you. I kept walking, eyes scanning every corner, every flicker of light, every ripple in the puddles, as if her reflection might appear in some impossible way. I remembered the nights we had whispered, confessing fears, secrets, dreams, each voice note a bridge, over loneliness, over pain, over the miles that stretched like endless horizons. I pressed my hand to my chest, feeling the stubborn rhythm of my heart, the pulse that carried hope, the pulse that refused to surrender. The river appeared again, dark and restless, its surface shimmering with streetlight reflections. I leaned over, imagining her there, her fingers skimming the water, her gaze lifting toward mine, and the ache twisted into something unbearable, sharp and tender, because love had made absence so vivid, so alive, that even shadows seemed to whisper her name. A sudden gust of wind lifted a page from the gutter, paper curling at my feet, and I bent to pick it up, my fingers trembling, heart trembling, as if it might carry a message from her, or perhaps just remind me that hope can live in the smallest things, in the faintest signs, in the breath between heartbeats. And I realized, even in silence, even in despair, love has a way of finding its voice, if we are brave enough to listen. I stopped at the edge of the river, the water dark and still now, mirroring the quiet of the city, and for the first time in weeks, I felt the weight in my chest begin to ease. I closed my eyes, listening not for her voice, but for the echo of what she had left behind. Her words, soft and unwavering. Her laughter, a fragile thread through the silence. Her belief in hope, even in the hardest moments. I realized then that love does not always arrive in the way we expect. Sometimes it is a voice that disappears, a hand we never hold, a presence that lives only in memory. And yet, even in absence, teaches us patience, teaches us courage. It teaches us to carry kindness, to understand the pain of others, to offer our hearts without expectation, because the world is full of people who, like her, give their warmth freely, and sometimes that alone can change everything. I let the wind sweep through my hair, the city breathing around me, and I understood that her silence was not an ending, but a gift, a reminder that love is not possession. It is presence, even when unseen. It is resilience, even when hearts break. It is the capacity to hold someone tenderly, without demand, and to let their memory guide you, to be better, kinder, braver, for yourself and for the world. Smiled, small and genuine, feeling the pulse of hope that had never left me. Somewhere I knew she would smile too, and in that thought, the world felt soft, the night felt bright, and my heart, tender and whole, was finally at peace, because love, in its truest form, is never lost, it only transforms.